Hi, this is Ophi Art, and here's a quick and simple tutorial on getting started with cross-stitching. The first thing you're going to want to do is find the center of your piece of fabric to start stitching from the middle outwards. This makes sure that you don't run out of space on any one side of the fabric. If you are not lazy like me, you can properly count to find the middle part, but I am very lazy, so I just measure the two ends and then kind of roughly find where the middle is. You can mark the middle however you like. I usually just use a needle. A lot of people find it easier to work on the fabric while it's in the hoop, and I am one of those people for small pieces of fabric. To open the hoop, just unscrew it, or perhaps you need to stretch the outer ring outside of the inner ring. And then once you have two pieces, place your piece of fabric on top of the inner part, and then close the outer part back on top of it. It does not need to be perfectly centered when you're working on it, because after you're done stitching, you will wash and iron your fabric, so you'll have to take it out of the hoop again. Just place it wherever you feel most comfortable holding it. The colored threads you use for cross-stitching are called embroidery floss, and they come in 6 strands. You can use all 6 if you'd like, but that is very thick. Usually I recommend starting with 2 strands, and then if that looks a little bit too thin for you, going up to 3. For this project I will be using 2 strands, so I will separate the 2 strands away from the other 4 from my piece of cut thread, and then I will place the other 4 on the side to use later. If you are not used to or don't like threading needles by hand, there's a handy little tool called a needle threader that you could use. To use the needle threader, first place the metal wire part through the eye of the needle. After that, take your thread and pull it through the metal wire part of the needle. Don't put too much thread through, you just want a little bit so that it's stable. Once that's done, pull the needle threader back out of the eye of the needle, taking the thread along with it. Then you can just take the thread out of the needle threader and then you're all done. You're good to go. When starting stitching, it is not recommended to tie a knot at the end of your floss. This makes it a little bumpy on the back of the stitch and can be not ideal for certain types of stitching. When pulling the needle through your first hole, you should leave a tail a little bit left that is about 3 centimeters long. When making your first few stitches, pay close attention to the back of the piece and use one finger to hold down the tail, while the lines created on the back of the piece from your stitching holds the tail in place. When you are stitching, envision the 4 holes as 4 corners of a box. You want your stitches to be in a diagonal line from one corner, for example the bottom left, to the opposite corner, for example top right. Then make another stitch that is diagonal between the other 2 corners. Make sure your stitches go in a consistent direction. For example, if your first stitch is from bottom left to top right, make sure all of your first stitches are from bottom left to top right, with the other way on top of them. This makes the embroidery look a lot neater. To finish off a thread, do not make a knot on the back of your piece. Instead, pull the remainder of your needle and thread through some of the stitches on the back of the piece. This will keep the thread flat. Trim off any excess, but make sure you leave enough just in case the thread moves around while stitching. Probably around like 1 centimeter. Once you're done following your cross-stitch pattern, you should wash and dry your piece. make sure you use a gentle soap on your fabric and lay it flat to dry. Once it's dried, iron it to make sure that all creases are not present. After that, place your piece back into the embroidery hoop and tighten it, making sure it's center this time. Take a very long piece of thread in a color that's similar to your fabric, and now we are going to close the back of the hoop. So start by using a running stitch with leaving a bit of a tail at the end, just all the way around the hoop. I've made a little bit of a mistake here and I didn't make my fabric big enough to have space for this, but it's still doable even if you have it this small as well. When you're at the end, make sure you have a bit left over as well. Then you want to pull the two ends of the threads, kind of like pulling hoodie strings together, to close it up. This will not make it lay completely flat, but it will finish it enough to lay against the wall. If you want it to be a little bit neater at the back, I recommend getting a piece of felt in a color that you like and cutting it out and using a blanket stitch to stitch it onto the back. More information about how to do a running stitch and a blanket stitch are linked at the bottom of this video. After that, you're all done. Hang some ribbons on it, tie it from a thread, put it up on the wall, whatever you're happy with. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you had a great time cross-stitching. Goodbye!